Taz Show Podcast.
And this is so cool. A London-based film company has released a trailer for their documentary about He-Man.
It revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, "By the power of Grayskull."
Here's the man, here's the hero, here's the template. When they took the figures out, these kids just went bats. They just went crazy. Everyone thought, this is ridiculous. It's never going to be a hit.
Between 82 and 87, He-Man represented roughly 95% of all the growth in the toy division.
And suddenly, He-Man became, this billion-dollar empire. So we were frantically designing vehicles and accessories for He-Man.
Rob McCallum of Pyre Productions joins us on the phone here. Rob, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I love coming on the show with you guys and talking everything. So thanks for indulging my movie habit.
Yeah, you are doing some incredible work, man. You're so busy. You've done so many documentaries so far, including Nintendo Quest, a documentary about London's own metal all-female band Kitty, and I just saw this pop up on my Facebook and had to talk to you about it because I knew this film was coming up. You teased it during the Nintendo Quest premiere, but the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Power of Grayskull documentary is coming out soon, and it's your baby, Rob.
It is. We all have that one toy or cartoon that we were first obsessed with when we were a young youth, and because when you're a filmmaker, you make films on the things that you know best. I finally had the opportunity to tackle He-Man. I'd already kind of crossed Nintendo off the list, and then heavy metal, as you said, with the Kitty documentary. So this was the toy that really shaped me.
Do people underestimate or forget how big of a phenomenon He-Man was?
I think when you compare it to other brands like Transformers and Ninja Turtles, probably, because those two entities are still going on, right? There's still movies that are coming out every couple of years. There's still cartoon shows. There's still fresh toys on the shelves. But He-Man was really only big in the 80s. I mean, it was a billion-dollar industry. It kind of saved the company when Barbie was actually losing money, and when the Intellivision was tanking Mattel, it was He-Man that kept Mattel afloat, which is, of course, a giant toy company. Mm-hmm. But it hasn't really done anything since, despite having a couple of reboots.
Is it because people are mad at the patriarchy and He-Man is such a masculine entity? Or what do you think? Why do you think the popularity dwindled?
I don't think that they really knew what they had on their hands and what works, because it's this really weird blend of everything that's great about Star Wars, this fantasy kind of sci-fi stuff, but it's also a little bit of Lord of the Rings because it's set on Eternia and there's like creatures and dragons and barbarian and stuff that you would see in Conan. So when you have those two elements, which are very different, it's hard to understand why they work the way that they do to create success. Now, it's funny you mentioned the patriarchy. He-Man's sister is She-Ra, which was a spin-off show, as I'm sure you know, and that's getting a reboot on Netflix. So it's interesting that the sub-brand, the spin-off brand, is coming back, but not the main brand.
Yeah. I think that's just the way that the world's going a little bit. They're really pushing for more female leads, which is awesome, but I'm just surprised there hasn't been a live-action He-Man movie, coming out.
Well, it's slated to come out, apparently in 2020, I believe.
Oh.
The rights have been up in the air, and I believe, and I might be talking out of turn, that the rights will lapse if they do not get it out in time. So, the studios are going to push to kind of make use of that IP, something familiar for everybody.
Yeah.
But again, this is like producing Star Wars and Lord of the Rings for a brand that really hasn't had a lot of spotlight in, 20, 30 years.
Power of Grayskull, definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe from Pyre Productions. Rob McCallum, thank you for putting London on the map when it comes to documentary nerd movies.
Well, thanks for reaching out, and a big shout-out to my colleagues, which I couldn't have done this film without Randall Lobb, Mark Hussey, and Isaac Elliott Fisher, who did the definitive history of the Ninja Turtles, which is what spawned this big team up for He-Man.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, man.
The Taz Show Podcast.